Hello, my name is Dr. Daniel Morgan, a urologist with over 30 years of clinical practice, and today I am going to share something with you that the pharmaceutical industry would rather you never discovered. There is a simple food available at any market or supermarket that has the power to genuinely transform your intimate life. I am talking about firmer erections, greater sensitivity, more pleasure, more vitality, a return to how your body used to function. Do you remember the last time that intimate moment carried the same intensity it did when you were 20 or 30 years old? I thought so. And I want you to hear this clearly. That is not your fault. Let me explain something I have learned over more than 3 decades of seeing men of all ages in my clinic. What you put on your plate directly determines how your body functions. That includes the firmness of your erections, the depth of your sensation, and the quality of your intimate experience. I will be direct with you because I think you deserve that. Sensitivity diminishes over time for many men. What used to be an intense, vivid experience can begin to feel muted. The release becomes routine, disappointing, something you endure rather than enjoy. And I see men dealing with exactly this every single day. Men in their 50s, 60s, 70s who sit across from me in the consultation room and describe that precise feeling. The flatness, the loss, the quiet resignation that maybe this is just how it is now. Here is what I tell them. It does not have to be this way. And I am not talking about medication. I am talking about real food. Foods that nature engineered with extraordinary precision and that, when consumed correctly and consistently, work better than many of the products I could write a prescription for. So stay with me until the end of this video, because I am going to walk you through exactly what these 5 powerful foods are. And I want to be clear, this is not empty talk. Everything I am going to share here is grounded in published scientific research and in what I have observed across 30-plus years of treating men with these concerns. Food 1. Beetroot. Let us start with the king of this list. Beetroot, that deep red root vegetable your grandfather probably had in a salad. I want to tell you precisely why beetroot is so remarkable from a clinical standpoint. Beetroot is loaded with natural nitrates. When you consume it, your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide. Now pay close attention here, because this is where the mechanism becomes genuinely impressive. Nitric oxide relaxes and dilates your blood vessels. All of them, including the ones responsible for producing and sustaining an erection. You may have heard of the well-known blue tablet that many men use. That medication works by increasing nitric oxide in the body. Beetroot does the same thing. Naturally, at a fraction of the cost. You buy it at any market. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine followed 87 men between 55 and 72 years old. The men who consumed beetroot juice daily for 12 weeks showed significant improvements in erection quality, firmer erections, longer duration, and measurably increased sensitivity. That is not anecdote. That is controlled clinical observation. Now let me give you the practical details, because a lot of people get this part wrong. The effective amount is 200 to 250 milliliters of beetroot juice per day. 1 glass, that is all. You do not need to drink large quantities, and I would caution against excess consumption of anything, because even the most beneficial substance becomes counterproductive in unreasonable amounts. There is also a right time to consume it. Drink your beetroot juice approximately 2 hours before any special moment. That is the window your body requires to convert the nitrates fully into circulating nitric oxide. You are essentially programming your physiology to operate at its peak at the right moment. You can juice it fresh. You can blend it with orange juice to improve the flavor. You can eat it cooked in a salad. The method matters less than the consistency. I tell my patients directly, make beetroot a regular part of your diet. Treat it as a foundation, not an occasional experiment. I will also add this. Beyond its effect on nitric oxide, beetroot is rich in antioxidants that combat cellular aging. And that applies to every cell in your body, including the ones in the tissue you are most concerned about. The more you protect your cells from oxidative damage, the better your entire system functions over time. Food 2. Spinach. The second food on this list is spinach. And I already know what some of you are thinking. Dr. Morgan, spinach is for children and cartoons. I hear that. But stay with me, because the physiology here is genuinely compelling. Spinach is one of the richest plant-based sources of magnesium available. And magnesium is not a minor player. It is essential for testosterone production in the male body. After the age of 40, testosterone naturally begins to decline. That is a normal part of aging. But what is also true is that we can significantly slow that decline through targeted nutritional choices. A 2011 Italian study demonstrated that men with higher magnesium intake had substantially higher circulating testosterone levels. And testosterone is not merely about sexual desire. It governs your energy, your mood, your muscle mass, your sense of drive, your overall feeling of being yourself. Now, I want to address something directly, because a number of men have raised this in conversations with me. Both beetroot and spinach contain oxalates, and in excess, oxalates can place added strain on the kidneys. If you have a history of kidney stones or existing kidney disease, please speak with your physician before significantly increasing your intake of either of these foods. For most men consuming them in reasonable, moderate amounts, there is no meaningful concern. But that conversation with your doctor matters if your history warrants it. Spinach is versatile. Saute it, add it to omelets, blend it into a green smoothie, toss it raw into a salad. I recommend consuming it at least 3 times per week. One practical tip: when you saute spinach with a drizzle of quality olive oil, your body absorbs the fat-soluble nutrients far more efficiently. That small addition makes a measurable difference in bioavailability. Food 3. Walnuts and cashews. The third food is actually a category, and one that most men significantly underestimate. Walnuts, cashews, almonds, nuts in general. These are concentrated sources of zinc, and zinc is fundamental to testosterone production and to the quality of sperm. Without adequate zinc, your body simply cannot manufacture testosterone at the level it needs to. A study from the University of Michigan found that men with low zinc levels had measurably weaker erections and reduced sexual desire. When those same men corrected their zinc status, erections improved, desire returned, and energy increased. But zinc is only part of what these foods deliver. Nuts are also rich in arginine, an amino acid that your body uses to produce nitric oxide. There it is again, the same molecule that beetroot activates through a different pathway. That is the beauty of a well-designed dietary strategy. Multiple foods hitting the same target through different mechanisms, creating a compounding effect. I want to address a practical concern that comes up regularly. What if chewing is difficult? What if dental issues make whole nuts uncomfortable or impossible? The solution is straightforward. Whole nut butters, walnut butter, cashew butter, almond butter deliver the same nutritional payload. You can also blend nuts finely and stir them into yogurt or a smoothie. The form is irrelevant. The nutrients are what matter. My recommendation is a small handful of mixed nuts or cashews daily. It can be at breakfast, as an afternoon snack, or mixed into a morning smoothie. It is practical, it is satisfying, and the science behind it is solid. Food 4. Dark chocolate. The fourth food might be the one that generates the most surprise in the consultation room, but I enjoy delivering this particular piece of news. Dark chocolate. And when I say dark chocolate, I am being specific. I mean chocolate with a minimum of 70% cocoa content. Not the milk chocolate varieties loaded with sugar and dairy that dominate the supermarket shelves. The real thing, 70% and above. Dark chocolate in that range is rich in flavonoids, plant compounds with a well-documented ability to improve blood vessel function and circulation. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that cocoa flavonoids reduce blood pressure and significantly improve vascular elasticity. That translates directly. Better vessel function means more blood arriving where it needs to arrive, when it needs to arrive. The mechanism is identical to what we have been discussing throughout this video. Circulation is the foundation. Everything depends on it. But dark chocolate offers something additional that no other food on this list provides quite as directly. It stimulates the release of endorphins and serotonin in the brain. These are the compounds associated with pleasure, emotional ease, and well-being. So when you consume quality dark chocolate, you are not only improving the physical infrastructure of performance, you are also shifting your mood and reducing the psychological friction that, for many men, is just as significant a barrier as the physical one. A practical note on dosage and health context. I recommend no more than 30 grams per day, which works out to roughly 3 or 4 squares of a standard bar. If you have diabetes or are managing pre-diabetic blood sugar levels, exercise caution with quantity. Even dark chocolate contains some sugar, and the concentrated form adds up. Always choose products with the least added sugar and the highest cocoa percentage you can find. And if blood sugar management is an active concern for you, have a conversation with your physician before increasing your intake of either beetroot juice or chocolate, as both have sugar considerations worth discussing. Food 5. Watermelon, the 5th food on this list, is one that consistently surprises men when I bring it up. Watermelon, that summer fruit. The one you eat at outdoor gatherings, sweet and refreshing and seemingly uncomplicated. But the biochemistry inside watermelon is far more sophisticated than its casual reputation suggests. Watermelon is exceptionally rich in citrulline, an amino acid that your body converts into arginine, which in turn drives nitric oxide production. There it is again, the same fundamental mechanism. Italian researchers found that men who consumed watermelon extract experienced improvements in erectile function, comparable in some measures to pharmacological intervention. Watermelon is obviously not a drug, and does not carry that level of potency. But the effect is real, and the advantages are significant. It is delicious, hydrating, widely available, and carries none of the side effects or cost associated with medications. Here is a practical piece of information that most people never hear. The highest concentration of citrulline in watermelon is not found in the red flesh. It is concentrated in the white rind, that pale layer between the outer green skin and the red interior. When you eat watermelon, make a point of consuming some of that white portion as well. It is mild in flavor and easy to include. You can eat it fresh, blend it into juice, or cube it into a fruit mix. The key is regularity. How to build this into your daily life, I want to take a few minutes now to bring all of this together in a way that is actually usable in a real life. Because there is no value in clinical information that cannot be applied practically. Over 30 years of practice, I have developed a simple daily framework that works consistently for my patients, and I want to share it with you. In the morning, start with a small handful of nuts or cashews. You can eat them plain, mix them into yogurt, or blend them into a smoothie. They require almost no preparation, and they set a strong nutritional foundation for the day. At lunch, include beetroot and spinach in some form. A salad combining both, cooked beetroot as a side dish, or sauteed spinach with olive oil. Rotate the preparations so it stays enjoyable. In the afternoon, have a few squares of quality dark chocolate. Pair it with a cup of coffee if you enjoy that combination. It is one of the more pleasant prescriptions I give. And when you are planning for a special evening, drink a glass of fresh beetroot juice approximately 2 hours beforehand, or eat a generous portion of watermelon with attention to the white rind. Now I want to be honest with you about something that I have seen trip men up repeatedly. Dietary change does not work miracles in 48 hours. You will likely begin to notice initial shifts in energy and general well-being within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent adherence. Genuinely meaningful improvements in intimate function typically emerge after 2 to 3 months of sustained dietary change. The men who give up after 2 weeks and declare that food does not work have simply not given their physiology the time it needs to adapt and rebuild. And these foods are one part of a larger picture. What you add to your diet matters. What you reduce or eliminate matters equally. Excessive consumption of sugar, daily fried food, uncontrolled alcohol, chronic dehydration. All of these actively undermine the circulatory health that everything else depends on. A patient story. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Joseph, with his full permission to share this story anonymously. Joseph came to my office at 68 years old, looking genuinely defeated. He told me he believed his intimate life was finished, that he felt nothing anymore, that nothing worked. We ran through his history together and did appropriate testing. There was nothing structurally severe, no major pathology. What was present was a decade of accumulated poor dietary habits, chronic stress, poor sleep, and complete physical inactivity. I sat with him and laid out a structured dietary approach, using exactly the foods I have described to you today. I also addressed his sleep, his stress management, and his physical activity level. 3 months later, Joseph came back to the clinic. I remember his face precisely. He was smiling before he sat down. He told me his energy had returned, that intimacy was something he looked forward to again, and that his wife had asked him what had changed. He had not taken a single new medication. The change came entirely from how he lived and what he ate. I share this story not to promise you the same outcome, because every man is physiologically unique and no honest clinician makes universal guarantees. I share it because it is representative of what I have seen repeatedly over 30 years. Diet matters, consistently and profoundly. Important medical cautions. I cannot close this section without being direct about the boundaries of what dietary intervention can and cannot achieve. These foods are preventive and supportive. They are not replacements for medical treatment when medical treatment is genuinely required. If you have severe erectile dysfunction with a clear vascular or neurological cause, uncontrolled diabetes, significant cardiovascular disease, or other serious underlying conditions, you need medical supervision. Dietary improvement belongs alongside appropriate treatment, not instead of it. There is also a specific drug interaction I want to flag directly. If you are taking blood pressure medication that contains nitrates, such as isosorbide, you need to be especially careful about your beetroot intake. Combining a nitrate-based medication with significant amounts of dietary nitrates from beetroot can cause blood pressure to drop further than intended. This is a real clinical concern and not a theoretical one. Talk to your physician before making substantial changes to your beetroot consumption if you are on this class of medication. Lifestyle pillars that support everything else the 5 foods I have described will deliver their best results when they are embedded in a broader commitment to your health. Let me walk you through the additional pillars that I consistently see make the difference between moderate results and transformative ones. Hydration. Drink adequate water every single day. Aim for at least 2 liters. Blood is a fluid, and blood volume affects circulation directly. Chronic low-grade dehydration is one of the most commonly overlooked contributors to poor vascular performance. Physical movement. You do not need to become an athlete or join a competitive gym. A 30-minute walk every day is genuinely sufficient to produce meaningful improvements in circulation, testosterone, and stress hormone levels. Exercise is one of the most powerful pro-circulation interventions that exists, and it is free. Sleep quality. Testosterone is produced primarily during sleep, specifically during the deeper phases of the sleep cycle. Men who sleep poorly suppress their own testosterone production night after night. Prioritize your sleep environment. Create a consistent sleep and wake schedule. Limit screen exposure before bed. The returns on this investment compound over time. Stress management. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, and cortisol is directly antagonistic to testosterone. I have seen men whose dietary improvements were significantly blunted by unmanaged psychological stress. Find your outlet. Walking, meditation, time with friends, fishing, gardening, whatever gives your nervous system permission to downregulate. It is not a luxury, it is a clinical necessity. On the subject of supplements, I am asked regularly whether zinc supplements, magnesium supplements, or citrulline capsules are necessary alongside dietary change. My answer is, it depends. If you are eating the foods described here with reasonable consistency, supplementation is generally unnecessary. The whole food forms of these nutrients carry additional cofactors and phytonutrients that isolated supplements do not replicate. However, if your diet is genuinely poor and you cannot realistically access these foods, targeted supplementation guided by a physician or registered nutritionist can be a reasonable bridge. What I would caution strongly against is unsupervised self-supplementation in high doses. Excess zinc, for example, interferes with the absorption of copper and other essential minerals. The balance matters. And if you come across products online advertising guaranteed results in 30 days or erections lasting 48 hours, apply the same clinical skepticism I would. There is no miracle product. There is consistent, intelligent self-care. One more point I refuse to omit. If you smoke, stopping is the single most impactful thing you can do for your erectile health. Tobacco destroys vascular endothelium. The inner lining of your arteries that controls nitric oxide signaling is progressively damaged by smoking in a way that no food on this list can fully compensate for. There is no dietary workaround for chronic tobacco exposure, and alcohol in excess is equally destructive to testosterone levels and vascular function. Occasional, moderate consumption is a very different matter. daily or heavy use is not. A final word, I want to close with something I have told countless men in my consultation room over the past 3 decades, and I believe it with more conviction now than when I started. The idea that intimate life ends at 60 or 70 or 80 is a lie that too many men have accepted without question. I see 80-year-old men who maintain active, satisfying, intimate lives. The difference between them and the men who have given up is not genetics, it is choices. Diet, movement, sleep, stress, relationships, and a refusal to accept decline as inevitable. Some 65-year-old men have more reliable, vigorous erections than men half their age because they have taken care of their bodies as a priority, not an afterthought. Your body responds to what you do with it. It is remarkably adaptive when you give it what it needs. So here is what I am asking you to do. Start with one of these 5 foods this week. Add it consistently. Then add another. Build the daily routine I described. Give it 2 to 3 months of honest commitment. And if after that period you have not noticed meaningful improvement, come back and see a physician, because at that point further investigation may be appropriate. But in the majority of cases, these straightforward, evidence-based dietary changes make an enormous difference. Involve your partner in this if you can. Cook together. Experiment with these ingredients. Make it something you share rather than something you manage alone. Intimate life is built on connection and mutual care just as much as it is built on physiology. If this video gave you something useful, share it with a man who needs to hear it. Leave me a comment telling me which of these foods you already include in your diet and which ones you are going to start with. I read every comment and I use your questions to shape the content of future videos. I am Dr. Daniel Morgan. Your best years are not behind you. They are waiting for you to take them seriously.